I sat through an hour webinar with Forrester and some new startup attribution vendor talking about how they're selling attribution 2.0. And I'm sitting through this thing, and what do they say? What attribution software is really good for telling you the things that aren't working. If you don't see any touch points, it must not be working. What are the things that don't create digital touch points? Everything in dark social, podcast, non-direct response social, organic social, communities, word of mouth, referrals from happy customers, all the shit that matters. The real answer is to fundamentally break the way that you measure your go-to-market strategy today and build something new that works for how the world works and buyers work today. So I got to say, I feel like I'm going to be coming in pretty hot today. We got some new stuff off the press. I think the exact reason why you all come to this event and why you listen to this show are some of the things that I see directly on the ground, and I'm able to surface that years before you might get that information otherwise, because I'm really in there looking. And another reason why you listen to the show is because we've expanded. We don't just talk about advertising and the website. We're now talking about the entire go-to-market integrated. How having a PLG motion impacts your digital. How having a PLG with a sales assist impacts other go-to-market motions, and how they all need to be playing together in a hybrid. And so let's get into it. The topic of today, product-led growth. Or what we look at is using product as a pipeline source. So, and what companies are doing right now, I'm actually having conversations with companies, the sales-led or the companies that have traditionally come up with an enterprise selling motion are now feeling pressure to implement a PLG motion, whether that's driven through market dynamics, but most likely the idea that like PLG is a holy grail. And then you have the companies that grew up PLG, that started self-service. Maybe they transact that way and they have a self-service motion and they're trying to add enterprise sales. And then you have companies that are running both at the same time. And I just had a conversation. We've done 3 separate analyses in the past 6 months where our core recommendation to our customer is shut off your PLG motion. The 3 times where we really had it and it was clear, that's happened 3 times over the past 6 months. Here's the underlying data as to why. The number one thing is that when you have a hybrid motion where you have start for free and you have get a demo on your website, that on average, 90% of the volume that comes through your website in terms of form submissions is now going to flow through the get started for free, which means that your sales, 90% of the demand that could go to sales is now going into your PLG motion. The next thing is that from the form conversion, whether it's a demo or a product sign up, from the form conversion to customer, the overall conversion in a free trial motion is 10x worse, if not more. And then the last part of it is that in the data that we've seen, limited sample size, that a person from form submission to actual revenue between product and a demo form is 4 times longer if they go into your PLG, which means that if your sales team closes a deal in 50 days, that it's going to take 200 days to close it if they go through your PLG form, and then they have to work through the sales assist motion and all that different stuff. Product-led growth takes demand away from sales. It delays revenue significantly, and it creates a ton of data and inefficiencies at the beginning of the process that SDRs or manual people need to sort through to find the real opportunities. And so I'm not saying that everyone out here that runs a PLG motion should go and shut it off. I'm definitely not saying that. And I've seen companies that have been able to make it work. What I'm saying is that there's a pattern here. And if you are doing this, or if you are considering this path, that I'd tell you to pump the brakes a little bit and really look at some of the metrics that I just talked through. If you have a hybrid motion running, look at those things. I had a conversation with a CMO just now, and they were like, the company is really invested. The founders really want to make sure the company is a PLG company. And based on the data, I was recommending, and she actually was aligned to this, to actually focus on the sales-led motion and take off the PLG for a little while. And what I said to her was, what it really comes down to for the founders and the executives of the company is, do you want to hit your revenue target in 2024 or not? That's what it comes down to. If you continue to run the hybrid motion and direct all this stuff away from sales, and it takes much longer to close from form conversion to win, that your chances of hitting your 2024 plan running the hybrid motion are way lower than going all in on the one that has shorter sales cycles, significantly better conversion rates, and gets you from form conversion to close faster. Are there some long-term compromises by not having the PLG motion? Potentially, maybe. And so those are just some things on the ground right now. And PLG was all the rage from whatever time period people started talking about it, 2018, maybe it started picking up traction all the way through in the best economic conditions that ever existed, where a PLG company, Series B, almost no revenue, just a bunch of free users, could raise 50 million bucks. And that world doesn't exist anymore. We need to make money. We need to generate a profit. We need to control burn. We need to run an efficient go-to-market. Those days are over. And you see the situation, which I'm upset about, really, but it's an example here, like the OpenView VC, which was the PLG evangelist, shutting down operations. When there's economic pressure, I think that the product-led growth and the hybrid product-led growth and sales-led as a main growth engine, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on that to continue for companies to maintain growth and hit profitability targets. For the big company, like, people love to reference the companies, the product-led growth companies that are working, that are already super successful, as if like that's the holy grail, like HubSpot or Snowflake or companies like that. The reality is those companies are billion-dollar, $10 billion plus market cap type of companies. It is different when we're down here at 30 or 50 million ARR, and we need to figure out how we're going to be one of those companies 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And the decisions that we make and the things that we do have to be different. We cannot look at companies that have been wildly successful and then look at what they do now and say we should do that for our company today. I just feel like we have to be looking at stage as a really important indicator. So that's what I'm seeing on the ground for product-led. Again, disclaimer, I'm not telling people to shut off product-led. I'm not saying product-led sucks. I've analyzed companies where the motions work. What I'm saying is that if you're considering it, or if you're doing it right now, to just take a closer look at what it is and try to weigh the opportunities. We're expecting with the company that they will get a much better 2024 pipeline and revenue result by just going all in on that motion and then deprioritizing PLG to interior pages and things like that. And we made this recommendation 6 months ago to a company, and they took it off 6 months ago, and we've seen the impact that it has on the demo pipeline created. Hundreds of percentage points increases in demo pipeline in 90 days by stopping funneling 90% of your potential demand into a free trial or a freemium or anything like that. It doesn't have to be a trial. And so with all that said, maybe we'll have a really focused, we've been I've loved how we've been able to go and focus on certain topics. So maybe we can focus a lot of this episode on PLG and hybrid motions. And so with that, we'd love to get in some questions. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Nancy's got a question to clarify some of your recommendations. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. So Chris, I just wanted to clarify, are you advocating either use PLG or sales-led, but just don't do hybrid at this point in time? Or are you saying, because we're now living at a different time than when HubSpot came along, in this day and age, your disposition is to avoid PLG unless it's absolutely necessary?
I'm saying that the economic conditions and the sentiment around PLG in this time seem to be changing. And I think that some companies still see it as a 2021 timeframe of, we need to do this. Like, our investors are saying we need to do PLG, so we just have to do it. It's not really a strategic decision. It's more of like, oh, HubSpot did it, or our investors told us did it, so now we're going to do it. I'm saying if you're taking that mindset today, that I think that you should challenge that mindset, that you don't, if you're an enterprise sales company, you don't need a PLG motion necessarily to remain competitive. You may not. And so it's more about trying to challenge some of the what I see as preconceived notions around PLG as a necessary, or what I would consider a very optional part of a overall integrated go-to-market motion. And so it's really about helping people sort of look at that at a different view, communicate the things that I'm seeing directly as I make recommendations for how a $50 million company or a $100 million plus company makes a strategic decision like this that has significant implications to both short-term and long-term growth. And it's just, it was interesting to me, like a light bulb went off today as I was having a conversation. It was like, wow, this is the third time I've made this recommendation recently. This is interesting. This is a pattern now. And so that's sort of where I'm going. And it's also about not looking at companies that do PLG now that are $1 billion plus revenue companies and saying because HubSpot does it or because Salesforce does it, that we should do it. But instead, look at your own market, look at your own data, and make a decision that's best for your company without just mirroring what others are doing.
So my experience is when you're selling a very technical product to a technical audience like software developers, you're selling software development tools, that they tend to prefer to have a trial. They want to get their hands dirty, and that's where a lot of the PLG motion seems to make sense.
I think that the PLG motion can make sense for a variety of different buyers and use cases. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it. I'm saying that a lot of companies may not need to use it. But there are particular instances where I think it makes perfect sense. And it's more so about looking at your data. And when you think about your growth plan, seeing this as a potential option when many people think that, oh, we're going to keep doing this way forever, and just seeing it as a potential path.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Next, we're going to Matt. We got some questions in the chat, so we got a couple queued up here. Welcome, Matt.
Yeah, thanks. So quick question. I'm working with a client. They have basically a hybrid strategy. They have basically two distinct channels, free trial, and then the typical demo request. Using self-reported attribution, I'm seeing increasingly people are actually referencing that trial. So they'd say things like, I've been a free trial user, or they use keywords like, I'm looking to upgrade, I want to get into the grayed out features, things like that. So I'm wondering if that is an opportunity to basically create some sort of like accelerator program where we're really going after those people, or should we kind of leave them be? On one side, I'm seeing great velocity metrics on the people who come in through the trial. On the other side, I don't have as much visibility of the trial. So I'm wondering, is that just adding to the COCA and just maybe degrading the LTV to COCA there? Should I just kind of leave it alone? It's a very loaded question, but what might be some of your first thoughts without looking at the data on how to address something like that?
I mean, if the product delivers and when done well with a sales assist motion, it's a great integrated motion, right? You're using the product, getting people into it. Maybe there's multiple users. You have certain triggers. Sales is following up. The deal size is appropriate enough where you can pay back those additional costs of acquiring the customer. Like that motion makes sense. Now for many companies that I consult with where maybe the product isn't ready yet. Maybe a lot of people are getting stuck. Maybe they don't have the right data and sales alignment to have a real sales assist motion. Maybe they just had a layoff and they don't have a growth team anymore focusing from free trial sign up to, opportunity creation or whatever. And so it's about evaluating at your company, is this helping us or hurting us? I think that's really the question. And then trying to balance the short term and the long term, and trying to take a lot of the subjectivity of, oh, we need to be a PLG company because our founders want to do it. And root it a lot more in what your customers need and what your business data is telling you. And then you need to be able to decide, how are we going to use that data to achieve the 1, 3, and 5 year plans? And it comes at compromises, potentially. Like some people feel like if you shut the PLG offer off and then you move straight into demo, I'm confident that you'd have a better shot hitting your 2024 plan that way, at least in the data that I've seen so far. But people think, oh, the PLG motion would accelerate and we'd figure it out, so then it'll hurt us 3 years later. I'm just not really sure I buy that totally. I see a lot of companies stumbling around in the PLG side that, maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe they'll get to this holy grail that a couple of companies have figured out. But even so, it's incredibly expensive. The B2B companies that primarily move people through free trials, and maybe they have like a small transaction value in there, they spend millions of dollars a month on Google advertising and performance marketing to try and get a free trial user, to try and get a $7 a month customer, and then hope that the math works out that 0.2% of them will become an enterprise customer at some point. And most of those companies are bleeding right now. It's like it's not a business model. And so I don't know the details about every specific company, but I know for sure the economics of this motion are really being challenged right now.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. That's all really well taken, pretty great. When I first looked at it, it's like the numbers made it seem like a no-brainer. But the thing I wasn't factoring was that sales cycle. That sales cycle was hidden in the PLG lead time, and that the person had been using it for years. They had said that, but it only showed like, a 20-day sales cycle. So it seemed like a no-brainer. But when I asked for more data going over to the trial side, it's just like the lead time there isn't even something you're considering. So that's where the costs come into it. So I think I'm landing exactly where you are.
It's 100%. I just looked at this and unlocked this today, right? The customer's on your website. You have active demand. It can go into a trial or a demo. You should measure the time from that point, the form conversion to revenue, and you see dramatic discrepancies, and you see how product-led growth dramatically extends like sales cycles from, especially in a free motion where you're not transacting at all.
Love it. I'm going to be welcoming back an old co-host on the show for a question. So welcome to the show, Megan Bowen.
Well, thank you, Sydney Waterfall. It's great to be here. What's up, Chris Walker? I love this topic.
Good to have you back.
So I actually, and this comes up a lot in the work that we do with customers as well. And I think it's easy for people to get into it's the either or camp. But let's say for the purposes of this question, the strategic recommendation is take down the PLG, focus on the sales-led CTA. People think, oh, it's one or the other, but there's actually a lot of, I think, creative opportunities to provide part of the PLG experience directly on the website without having that actually be a true CTA. And so I think also when we get into the implementation of this recommendation, I would love to kind of get your thoughts. I bet you have a lot of good ideas on this of like, okay, yes, we're going to take down the free trial CTA. We're going to lean into the sales-led CTA. And then what are some other changes that we should make to our web experience or our digital campaigns to give people the same information or experience or, hands-on test that they would get if they signed up for the free trial? Like, I think there's actually a way to lean into the right CTA, but also make some other changes either on the website or in some creative digital campaigns to still kind of achieve some of the things that people really like to have their prospects, customers experience in that free trial motion. So I'd love for you to riff on that.
Yeah. So just as a small nuance, like when I'm recommending turn off the PLG motion, what I'm really saying is dramatically deprioritize it. It's not like we're going to shut off the login page. It's get it out of the top level CTA, get it out of the hero, stop making it the main button on the homepage. Stop. Most of your demand is going to funnel organic, direct, or brand or some type of paid search onto the homepage. That is where most of the demand that's in market to buy is going to land. And so getting the button when all that demand is there, stop diverting it outside of sales and just let it all flow into sales. Now, on your interior solutions page, like that's 3 tiers down in the website hierarchy, sure, you could have a place there. When a disqualified customer asks to speak to sales, have your SDR just follow up and direct them into the free trial when the account's not converted. Say, hey, thanks for booking it. Based on these, we think you should start here. Here you go, check it out. So sales can continue to work it in either as a disqualification mechanism or for a different reason. That you stop spending most of your media dollars to drive a free trial sign up. Like that's the real issue here. Most companies that run PLG, they'll split enterprise and their growth team. The growth team will waste $1 million a month trying to get free trial signups, and the enterprise team has $50K to spend on LinkedIn ads. And so you stop spending so much of the marketing dollars trying to get a free trial sign up after that. and you rebalance your marketing mix to create demand and capture that intent and convert pipeline to accounts that are worth it to you, instead of spending all your money in Google getting SMB or unqualified customers to sign up for your trial. To me, those are the core benefits of making this strategic choice. And then the last piece is that on the conversion rate side, when you have people going into the trial, like we did the analysis, they got 4,000 demos in a year and 70,000 trials. And to try and ask your sales team to sort through all of that junk to find the 0.4% of the 70,000 that are going to become a customer is incredibly inefficient, unless you can really nail down the signals, which frankly, just most companies don't have the tracking to really nail down the signal of what are the key things a person needs to do in the product so that when our sales team contacts them, they're going to take the meeting and buy. Most companies just don't know that. So to me, those are some of the top level benefits when you make the choice to just sort of just deprioritize this in a hybrid motion.
What are your thoughts on interactive tours supporting a free trial process?
I think that any information that you can provide as a company to enable your buyer to buy independently is a good thing. It leads to buyers buying how they want. And because you provide the information, they get the information from you instead of a review site or a competitor's landing page or something like that. Just give them all the stuff that they need to make the decision and enable them. And so, yeah, I see that, whether it's what comes down to pricing or an interactive demo or a group webinar that you do every week with potentially 20 customers that all want to interact in a group and learn, to hire an influencer to demo your product like once a month and use it as a way to do a virtual event and how somebody uses your product. There's a trillion things that you can do as a go-to-market team to enable your buyers to buy independently. And I effectively support all of them because I know that's what your customer wants.
Love it. Okay, we had a question submitted in advance. It says, Chris, I've seen that you've been recently switching up your content videos on LinkedIn and YouTube. Any insights into your strategy or thinking here, or early insights into what you're seeing?
Sure. Yeah. A couple of points just so people understand like the strategy. So one, we've shifted from an in-house studio that I used at my desk, which was, partially convenient for me because I didn't have to leave my house, but it was also not great for me because then you're like the studio is in your house. So we moved to a professional studio. So for me now, instead of me going to my third bedroom to record a podcast, it kind of feels like I'm like going to the stadium to play a game. I feel like my level has come up by moving into a professional studio personally. And then you have a different cut of video that is specifically framed so that you can run vertical short form video for YouTube YouTube Shorts, Reels, TikTok, and you have the square cuts or the vertical cuts for a LinkedIn video. A second part of that is that I became a limited partner in a company called Hatch, which I've been advising for about a year and a half, that does dark social content production. They edit our podcast. They edit the videos that go on YouTube. They edit the videos now that I also post on LinkedIn and on TikTok and other channels like that. So now we're sort of proving out their content production model on my brand. So what we've been able to level up is not some of the captions, the shooting, the cuts, the editing. They have a really interesting model about how to be able to edit the videos effectively and get it done at an efficient cost. And my expectation of what's going to happen in the future, I think that at some point, it hasn't happened yet. I've been talking about it for 4 years. It sort of goes up and down. Right now, it's in a down, that LinkedIn is going to have to become a video first platform. I just think they are. And my bet is that the way people that already consume on TikTok, Instagram, Reels, and YouTube Shorts will then become the primary consumption method inside of a LinkedIn as well. And so I also think that it's a really interesting pattern interrupt for somebody that's scrolling through LinkedIn that gets a bunch of text walls and like occasionally an image and a bunch of shitty ads, that now they would get a video that looks like it belongs on TikTok in the feed from me. And I think that it's gonna break through differently or attract attention differently. That is a hypothesis. Simultaneously, I continue to use YouTube Shorts and TikTok as a testing ground for vertical short form video, and things that perform well then make it into my LinkedIn cadence. and just trying to continue to pave the way for companies that want to do this. That a couple of core things. One, it doesn't need to be your founder or CEO who does this for your company. Theoretically, anyone in the company could do it for your company or for yourself. And trying to break down the barriers and show that it doesn't cost a lot of money. How are we going to measure it appropriately? What are the best practices? Just trying things and not being afraid if they're like quote unquote not going to work, or if my reach goes down for 30 days. That's just not why I do these things. Like, I come and do this because of I can't see the number because it's too far away. All of you that are on live that get something about my PLG talk, go look at some data and then change your company's strategy for next year. Like, that's why I come and do these things. So, yeah, with that said, that's kind of some of the details under the hood of what we're doing with my content strategy.
Nice. How do you, specifically with ads on video, we're seeing actually lower CPMs, video ads on LinkedIn. So more people have been asking, hey, how do I run an effective video strategy in an ad format specifically? Anything that you'd recommend or questions you'd ask, and how you'd recommend to measure that?
Have a stream to create content that is built for thought leadership, and then have a separate stream to create content that's built for product marketing. And then deliver a mix of those two things that are going to require different skill sets, different teams, different editing styles, and different investments. And treat them as two separate things that are both going to be distributed through the number one channel where our customers consume for many B2B companies is LinkedIn. And we need to be able to do both when we think about a paid strategy, and we need to be able to do both when we think about an organic strategy. You see, every once in a while, I mix in a press release about a new company that I invested in, or a new product that one of the companies that I'm interacting with launched. I mix in a promotional thing every once in a while, organic, and it actually does really well. But then I have the mix of thought leadership. And then when you think about the paid standpoint, you should almost be looking at a similar type of style and mix that can be optimized for your specific customer. Lower ACVs probably drive more to performance, et cetera, et cetera. But from an execution standpoint, it's really about having the content creation mechanisms to do both well. So that's one of the parts. On the measurement side, it's kind of a loaded question, because the real answer is to fundamentally break the way that you measure your go-to-market strategy today and build something new that works for how the world works and buyers work today. I sat through an hour webinar with Forrester and some new startup attribution vendor talking about how they're selling attribution 2.0. And I'm sitting through this thing, and what do they say? What attribution software is really good for telling you the things that aren't working. If you don't see any touch points, it must not be working. What are the things that don't create digital touch points? Everything in dark social, podcast, non-direct response social, organic social, communities, word of mouth, referrals from happy customers, all the shit that matters. And so then they say they're building attribution 2.0. Every single company that's trying to fix attribution is going all in the same direction. Let's track digital touch points, and then let's try to create statistics on top of those digital touch points. And that whole area has flaws when you do anything that doesn't create a touch point. And so that really is the flaw in the model. So the real solution is to use attribution software to measure signals, along with other sources of data like account intent data and third-party lead gen sources and things like that, that are all signals of the intent in the market that you can capture. And then when you have those signals, then you can decide which ones are we going to use to have sales or SDRs take action, and then we can track them all the way to revenue. And then to think about how we measure our demand creation motion to 99 to 95, somewhere in that range, 95 to 99% of our target market. How are we going to measure how we market to them when they're not in market to buy? And it's not digital touchpoint based attribution. And so we're experimenting with that at Paceto. We have a lot of interesting ideas that I will share coming up about how we're going to get to this, but I can tell you for sure it's a very different way to solve the problem than how every single other person and company are approaching solving it. But I'll give you a little preview. It's just ask the market. You can do that through self-reported attribution, listening to gong calls, sending surveys, doing win-loss analysis, having a customer advisory board. There's a trillion other ways that you could do it, and then being able to process all that data and make decisions on how you create demand based on that, which doesn't force you to get a digital touch point on a LinkedIn organic post to say that it worked?
We actually have Tracy going to come on next. She's got a good experience about video and just kind of want to discuss it with you.
Hello, sorry, I wasn't expecting to come on.
You're on.
But yeah, I shared I had a video that was doing well organically, and it was a healthcare project manager who shared his expertise. And I chopped up a longer video that we had used on Pursuits, put it out there organically, and then it did well, generated a lot of conversation with our target accounts and decision makers. So then I paid to pretty much put it in front of the people in those accounts. And it did even better because it was in front of the exact people that I wanted to consume it. And they shared it, like 4 of them shared it. One had an awesome testimonial on it. And we put it in our CRM, and we put that testimonial on Pursuits because it's public when he puts it in the comment and shares it to his personal feed. So it was like the best thing ever, better than like reaching out to get a testimonial, right? Because they're putting it out there and they're telling you, yeah, we like this and it works.
I'm so glad you came on and said that. I literally couldn't have said it better myself. And it's such a great learning moment for people. This is the way that content is going to work in social for the foreseeable future. You're going to post content organically, and it's going to get traction. And then once it gets traction, then you take that the raw piece of content or reformat the content to make it more performance driven. And then you're going to run it on paid to the people that matter, instead of spending $1 million on creative and content that is unproven in the market and just running it to people and hoping it works. It is such a better strategy overall. And in the world of efficiency of advertising, that is going to be the future, so that when you put dollars to something, you already know it works. You're not guessing or testing. So specifically for user-generated content, thought leadership, sure, some campaigns that you run and things like that are not going to get validation organic before you run them. But for certain things, you can clearly see this worked organically. Now let me take it to paid where it really matters to the people that matter.
Okay, we got another follow-up question, a little bit about website CRO, specifically with the dual CTAs that you were talking about with PLG and demo, sales-led CTA. So they have a dual CTA in the header, and they have dual CTA in above the top nav as well. What would be your advice to go about to experiment with maybe removing that? What are some of your thoughts? They're just trying to put a plan together.
I feel like this needs a lot more context to like appropriately answer the question. The first question is, should you even be considering experimenting with this? That's the first thing. Look at your data, understand how the motions are playing together, track the time to close, understand the business goals over the next 12 plus months, and be able to make an informed decision of whether or not this is even something that we should be testing or not. So I think that's really step one. If you arrive at the conclusion, like I've arrived at recently with several companies that we consult with, that in order to hit the 2024 and 2025 fiscal targets, that we are going to deprioritize our PLG motion because we're getting so much better velocity through sales, and we're bifurcating most of the demand to a motion that isn't working, that if I was going to do it, then you make the strategic commitment around it. You remove the button and you go to one full motion. When you do that, don't make sure that you're not running performance marketing that used to go to a trial and then just redirecting it to a demo and driving a bunch of junk into your demo form, because you're just going to piss off sales and you're going to increase the likelihood of it, the change not working or being rejected. So make sure it's clean. You can track and you can look at the total number of website conversions between those two buttons. You can look at the historicals, and you'll see, if you look at them, that generally 90% of the demand is going to flow through the free trial or the freemium offer because it's the path of least resistance. And then the remaining 10% are going to go into the demo form or some numbers like that. And so when you take off that button and you eliminate that flow of demand where 90% is going through, then do you get all 90% of the demo form? Probably not. Do you get the top 10, 20, 30% of the qualified 90%? Probably. And I would be looking for the ratio of the conversions, how many total conversions go down, what was the increase of the demo, and not only the demo submissions, but how much pipeline you're creating from both of those motions combined. When you look at it together and then you break it down, you say, okay, we have the dual motion and 90% of the conversions go to the free trial, but only 20% of the pipeline is created from the free trial. Then you start to think, well, is there even a downside to trying this or changing it permanently? So those are some of the things that I would think about, but it's really rooted in understanding your data and your business goals that really drives how you would make this particular decision.
Any other tips on optimizing the demo conversion flow, like the form? They're questioning, removing fields to increase that conversion or keeping the form the same.
There are some core sort of like conversion optimization principles that you can follow that are super basic. Don't have the navigation on the demo form. It's like take off the navigation, eliminate all the other places that someone could go. It's either fill out the demo form or hit the back button. To implement like automatic qualification and then calendar booking tool directly to the AE for routing would dramatically improve the conversion from demo form submission to meeting sat by putting a $40 per user per month technology in the middle and making the entire go-to-market run so much better. To have a specific sort of disqualification flow, like if you do have the PLG, to have the people get out of sales immediately, to have the SDR either rebook and take the meeting, or for the SDR just to intervene and funnel that person into a disqualification flow, whatever that may be, but could be into the free trial in this instance. To implement reminders so that as the meeting comes up, that there's an automatic reminder saying, hey, your meeting is in an hour. Hey, your meeting starts in 30 minutes to whoever's supposed to be at the meeting. To potentially have the sales rep send information as a pre-read and things like that to the customer in advance of the meeting, to then get a response and engagement and prep to the meeting. It's really when you don't have your sales team filtering through garbage to find the diamond in the rough that they're going to be able to close, they can work on all these things that are way more customer centric. So it's about having a commitment to having the go-to-market run efficiently, which when run efficiently also allows us to be a lot more customer centric because we're focusing on the people that matter and giving them a personalized, elevated experience rather than treating them the same as the 1,000 leads that come through our free trial form. And I think really thinking about how the different types of signals, whether that be a demo or any other signal that exists, and whether because it's such a meaningful amount of revenue that we look at that part, like that actual go-to-market motion and how we capture that into revenue and optimize that process specifically, where we have a sales process dedicated to people that say, I want to buy now. And we run a different sales process and have different people involved for people that don't say that. I think it's really interesting because it truly is a different type of sale.
You dropped a lot of good tips on not even just how to look at the demo form, but the whole, inbound buying experience and optimizing that entire funnel. I think that's a good key takeaway. It's not always just about the form and the website conversion. You need to take a step back and look at the larger conversion and points that you can implement along the way.
Yeah, here's another little like reframe for people to think about, is that instead of saying that we invest with, marketing headcount and agencies and programs and marketing technology, and then we have the SDR department over here and the SDR has their technology, to look and say, what are all the investments that we make to create pipeline? Define pipeline as hero that's standardized across the different pipeline sources to manage for the different quality on those pipeline sources. And then look at it and say, we've invested this much money to create pipe. How much pipe are we creating? It's a totally different dynamic than saying, what's the ROI of our marketing? It isolates. We spend this money for this reason. Is it driving the impact, the core objective that we have, which is create more pipe? So I think that's an interesting mindset frame, like a mindset switch for some people to consider as well. That gets us out of, there's no departments in that point. We have investments to create pipeline. We have investments to convert pipeline. We have investments to expand accounts. events could sit in all that spectrum. Our website could fit in that whole spectrum. Our digital advertising could fit in that whole spectrum. Our SDRs could play different roles across that whole spectrum. And instead of trying to credit the department that's doing the work, that we focus on what are the goals of these investments and then scrutinize those investments against the goals. It's going to be more coming for that, but that is an early preview of what I believe would be the actual. Is it going to be easy? Is it going to happen tomorrow? Definitely not. But I think that would actually be the core solution for go-to-market teams, is to stop looking at department analytics, department level credit, trying to scrutinize department level budgets, and change how they think about that completely from departments to, core customer lifecycle stages and how you invest across those. It would also flag the massive misallocations across budget on those spectrums, that a majority of the money is spent to convert pipeline and capture intent, very little often spent on expanding accounts, and very little often spent on creating demand.
Yeah, a lot of customers in the Vault community actually were going through this when they were budget allocation and planning and mapping their budgets out to those categories that you just mentioned. So I think there are some early adopters trying this, but it would definitely take a little time.
It's going to take a little bit of time because companies don't look at it this way. So it's our opportunity to be able to bring this to people and say, here, from the beginning of time, it's always been, here's the marketing budget, here's the marketing plan, here's the sales budget, here's the sales plan, here's the SDR budget, here's the SDR plan. Let's look at our department level analytics, and then let's try and put them together at the top in an executive meeting. That there hasn't been a person or function that says, this is how we look at them together across all of them. It will take some time for adoption. So it gives us a great opportunity to start to put it into practice if it makes logical sense to you. Because I think careers will be made here. That somebody that before was going to become a VP of RevOps or wanted to be a CMO, that they'll take a individual contributor role that works with the CMO, CRO, CFO, the rest of the executives, to decide what are we going to do in our go-to-market strategy, how are we going to allocate investments, what KPIs are we going to measure, what priorities should the RevOps department have? Should we hire an external firm for that? Should we divert budget from our advertising budget to go fix our data problem? Those are the conversations that I think we could be having. And I think those are really important conversations that, because of how each owner owns a department right now, a lot of those conversations don't get had.
Right, we've got Carlton here going to come on and have a conversation about some PLG user data. And there's some questions in the chat also related to this topic. So
cool. I'll answer what I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, long time been following you. So thanks for this. Yeah, so all of this resonates, right? So I guess without being too vulnerable here, we are a PLG organization, been since day one. It's so embedded in the brand, like we talk about it so much that I just don't think we would ever be able to turn it off. I just think that it would do more damage, right? And I'm not advocating internally for turning it off, but I do see value in like we have a highly technical tool, right? And I feel like that white glove onboarding experience would definitely help folks as they go along, because that, folks trying to do it themselves, they'll get in, get lost. It's a whole green field, right? So there's a lot that we need to do in terms of the onboarding experience and making sure that people are educated enough to, really understand what they're doing within the platform to get to that value. So yeah, we're doing a lot of things, like you're saying too. We've changed the main CTAs on our nav, or in the Hero. We actually removed, sign up CTA. People can still find it, but we're trying to push people to our Calendly and whatnot. The question I actually put in the chat was more technical. I'm just curious, like based on your experience, if anybody else can kind of chime in here, but and I think somebody else brought it up early in the call in terms of, folks sign up through the PLG motion using like a dummy email or Gmail, personal email address, whatever, but then they'll come in months later on the demo form using their enterprise email address, and like we'll have zero visibility in terms of the fact that they've actually been a PLG user for months, years, whatever. unless we have that conversation with them, right? And of course, sales is having that conversation. I'm just curious to know, like, is there? I guess obviously I want to know who these people are that are using the platform. You know, what are there any tools out there that can help us with this identification? Like I've got like a hacked way that I'm working on right now that I think will work, but it's, you know, I'm using different tools and it's, you know, custom scripts and all this kind of stuff that I'm trying to figure out. But yeah, anyway, long-winded, but yeah, just curious to know, like, in your experience, like what has worked, if anything, in terms of marrying that data between those unknown users within your PLG platform and the enterprise users that come through.
Let's get to the root of this. Why do you think they put in a dummy email address or their personal email address?
Well, so to get into it, we're in cyber. People just want to be anonymous, right? Nobody wants to give up their stuff.
Yeah, I think they've been trained to not want to be harassed by your sales team when they just want a free trial. So it's the buyer understanding the experience and doing what they need to do to what's best for them. So you could force them to use a business email. Nobody in PLG will do that because it'll kill your trial sign-up volume, even if what the volume it kills is all garbage anyway. But no PLG company is going to do that. So then you have the situation that you're in, trying to stitch it together on the back end. Maybe you can figure it out. I know there are databases that try and match personal emails to business emails. So like, you know, maybe, but I think it kind of is what it is. What I wanted to ask you was, why did you do that? Like you said, the company was PLG since day one. But then you told me that you took off the sign up button off these core places and went all in on the demo. What was the data that led you to that decision? Was it similar to what I communicated or different?
Similar, right? And so we're a growing organization. We're hiring more sales folks, right? And so we're trying to fill up that the sales pipeline, those hand raisers versus the folks that are just looking to play around with the tool.
Yeah, and there's a I don't know, we'll do the calculation, but it has to be immense difference in sales velocity between those two core points.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
totally agree. Do you have a follow-up question? I feel like I kind of got to what you were looking for, but at the short of it, like trying to connect that as a technical challenge. Maybe some people in the chat have an idea. I know there are tools that try to do it, but I don't think they give you the data. I think they run it in the background because of GDPR and when they build like custom audiences for advertising and things like that. So I don't know specifically any. Maybe people have some answers for you in the chat.
Yeah, I could throw it in Slack too.
Let us know. Come back in a month or two and let us know what you find relative to demo volume, total pipeline created through the website, things like that.
We have time for one more question. So I'm going to ask this one. This person's in their car, so asking on behalf. Have you seen any PLG companies that you've audited that do track signals well, or have any recommendations for types of product signals to track?
I mean, you tell me, but nothing sticks out in the ones that we've looked at. None of them come to mind as like, wow, they really had that figured out. I see too that when you look at like a lot of companies that reach scale and maturity here are going to have a self-service paid offer. They're going to be transacting with credit cards, and that's going to be handled somewhere else other than their CRM usually. Maybe they'll tie it back to the CRM, but normally it's handled somewhere else. And so you have all this transaction revenue that funds some of the advertising and things like that. It's different when it's purely free. And they have an enterprise team that's managing all the stuff in Salesforce, where it's like sending a lead from Marketo into Salesforce or HubSpot into Salesforce, like marketing used to do, but it's just coming from product for some reason. I haven't seen a ton of instances where that signal ends up being a really, really major contributor to enterprise, like sales focused revenue, whatever segment it's in or whatever company size. When sales is working the deal, I just haven't seen a lot. We've analyzed a lot of PLG companies and dual motion companies, but don't see product delivering tons of the revenue that sales is closing. Comes from events and partner and demo forms on the website, and then product has a small sliver, 10 to 30%, somewhere in that range. So I think that having that motion can make sense, and it clearly works for some companies. But I feel like a lot of people historically have been like, oh, damn, like next year we have to do PLG, just like philosophically deciding that they have to do PLG. And I'm just flagging here that a lot of the data that I'm seeing and others are seeing that are on this call that mentioned they're coming to a similar conclusion that it can't be that automatic anymore. We really have to challenge that that preconceived assumption.
Yeah, the only signals I've seen in recent companies that we've looked at, I mean, they're either passing everything to sales or they're essentially just running a lead scoring model based off product usage data and triggers. Still haven't seen like anything consistent that's like mind blowing of like these are core signals that work across, multiple companies at this point. So I think that could be a question for a PLG expert to see what they're saying.
And then most likely the signal is that your free trial user asks for a demo or to talk to sales. Like that's most likely the signal that matters. And then just trying to figure out how to integrate that into the product experience. I think that's really so that your buyer doesn't have to so that it's more teased out. So they don't have to like decide to go to the website and ask for a demo, that you have that growth path more embedded in the product.
Yeah, they can book a call with whoever they want to talk about upgrading their plan or adding team members immediately in the product. So great. Well, that was the last question that we had for today. Any closing thoughts?
Gosh, I feel like it's been like 4 or 5 episodes in a row now where we've been on a roll where we like pick a topic or typically like a motion and really go into detail in it. So this has been super cool. This episode was on product-led growth. I think it's going to continue to be a hot topic. We'll see how the feedback flow. This podcast will get released. I'll get DMs and things like that. So things will start coming out of the woodwork of like, oh man, like we saw the same thing. We've been thinking about making that change. So we'll get a sense of what the response is like for people that are seeing the same things but haven't vocalized them yet. And so there'll most likely be more to report on here, but hope this was super valuable to you. This is like why I do this work, to like surface something key like that could make a huge impact on a company's plan in the next 12 months. So you don't get these types of insights all the time, but today was one of them. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back next week. Thanks everyone for being here.